Hey, hey, hey! All right, this is exciting. I'm here to talk about everything that you need to know about this new project called OpenTofu. I've got a lot to say on the topic. And for the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'll do a deep dive into all sorts of different things. And so a little bit about the outline of the talk I'm going to give. I'm going to talk about what OpenTofu is. I'm going to talk about like the kind of project it is and how it's separate from Terraform, from which it was forked. I'll talk about what the process is of migrating to it, how to contribute, and throughout the process, I'll talk a little bit about open source and hopefully share some of the wisdom that we got along the way. Cool. So a little bit about me. I'm Sebastian Stadil. I'm one of the core members of the OpenTofu team. I'm also the CEO of a commercial company called Scalr that makes tools for OpenTofu. And used to live in San Francisco. I live in Paris now. I've been moving around last couple of years before settling here. Yeah, I'm excited to be giving this presentation. Sorry I can't be there in person, but hopefully this is just as good for you guys. All right, let's get started. So what is OpenTofu? I'm sure you've seen this meme circulating on the internet. OpenTofu really is and the open source continuation of the Terraform project. I don't know if everyone has followed this, but HashiCorp decided back in August of last year that they would stop making Terraform be an open source project. It's no longer licensed under an OSI approved license. And we were all saddened by that, but that's their choice. And as a result of that, with the community, myself and many others, we've decided that we would make a fork of the last open source version of Terraform, and that fork we would make that open source and collaborate on it. So if you don't really know what OpenTofu is, think of it as a declarative model for managing your infrastructure, but really just managing all the configuration of all of your stuff, whether it's DNS or I've even seen some people use it for managing their Salesforce instances. Anything that's got an API can have a provider for it, and then you can then manage it as code. When you manage that as code, you get all of the advantages of kind of the software development process, right? So somebody proposes a change, somebody else can review it, accept it, merge it, and then you made that change to your infrastructure. If you're not sold, talk to anybody else in the audience. I'm sure they'll tell you more about it. So why this project matters. I like to think about open source projects as having multiple levels of openness. At the very fundamental, at the foundation of it, a project has to be under an open source license that allows the project to be forked, allows people to make derivative works, and use it and redistribute it freely. There's a few other tenets, but that's kind of what the core of an open source license is. And so there's a lot of projects that are technically open source. They are under an open source license, but they are failing in kind of other levels of openness. For example, some companies will open source a project of theirs, but they'll just dump all the code on GitHub, and then they're done. And you can use it if you want to, or fork it if you want to, but that's limited to that. A second level of openness is when there's an open contribution policy, right? For an open source project to be successful, it's very helpful if the project accepts contributions from everyone or from folks that submit good improvements. And so there's lots of organizations that have, lots of projects that have that are open source and have an open contribution policy. The next level of openness is when the governance or the group of folks that are in charge of deciding whether some contributions making it in or don't, whether the governance of that project is also open. lots of times what happens is with projects is they are under an open source license. They have an open contribution policy, but it's maybe a single vendor. It's a single organization that controls what goes in, what doesn't go in, and so that's a level of openness that some projects don't have. And the last one, which is kind of the fourth level of open source project openness, is when the decisions that lead to contributions being accepted or not, when those decisions are open, when they're transparent, and they're communicated to everyone. So hopefully I didn't go over that too fast, but that's the four things that I believe are really important for an open source project to be long-term successful, like Linux, like Kubernetes, and et cetera. So OpenTofu. OpenTofu is a level 4 open source project. It's got all of these elements. It's open source. It's got an open contribution policy. Governance is open, and the decision making is transparent. And I'll go into that into a little bit. So OpenTofu, it's a stable long-term project from the Linux Foundation. There's a lot of organizations that are contributing to the project. And the goal of the Linux Foundation is to shepherd all of the organizations that are making contributions to it, so that the project is stable over the long term. So point number one, OpenTofu is MPL licensed. It's the same license as Terraform originally was, and it's a great license. And that gives you the right to fork it. It gives you the right to modify it, and it gives you the right to redistribute it, etc. OpenTofu also has an open contribution policy. The proof of that is that there have been close to, like a little bit more than 70 now, but over 70 unique contributors are not affiliated with any of the founding organizations of the projects. And so it's been incredible to see contributions in all sorts of different kinds, right? The code contributions, idea contributions, bug reports, etc. Contributions from the entire community. And if you go to the contribution.md, you'll find the markdown file for the way that contributions are made to the project. And so we got extensive documentation for that. Third, OpenTofu is openly governed. Super, super important part. And this is a part where the Linux Foundation has really helped the project establish the foundation for this, for the project being stable and for the project being successful over the long term. So the first thing is that the governance is done by a neutral, what's called technical steering committee. Think of this as a body of folks that are elected by the community or chosen by the community, and that group of folks, they're in charge of making the decisions or making the guidelines of what gets of the direction of the project, and they will, when there's changes that need to be made to the project, for example, for BC changes, or like important architectural trade-offs, the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee, will deliberate and decide on it. All the minutes, all the notes from all of these meetings from the TSC are published on GitHub, and the members of it were chosen by the community, and we'll publish shortly a document with the term limits, or the term for all of the TSC members, and the process by which we'll run elections. And then fourth, a very important fourth one, is that the decision making that we make for accepting PRs, for making changes, all of that is open, transparent, and is posted to GitHub or to other places where we discuss all of these things openly. We make the decisions also in the open, and anybody can contribute to the discussion. And so if you, for example, want to suggest a change to the contributions policy, you can just submit a PR against that, and then we'll discuss that. And so OpenTofu has all four of these projects. And it's backed by dozens and dozens of organizations. We are very close to hitting 100 unique contributors. The project has 19,000 stars on GitHub. It's got, folks in the community include Oracle, GitLab, Alliance, ExpressVPN, and hundreds more. And so the takeaway from all of this is, while we were all saddened that HashiCorp decided to that Terraform would not be open source anymore, with the community, we saw a unique opportunity to make a fork and submit that fork to the Linux Foundation and have that fork be not just a level 1 or level 2 open source project, but a full level 4 open source project that's openly governed, that has an open contribution policy, of course, that's open source licensed, and has all the decision making be open as well. There we go. That being said, it's also really important to understand that OpenTofu is a separate project for Terraform. So they share common roots, right, which is Terraform up to version 1.5.5. But after that, they diverge and they have different different visions, different project goals, etc. As far as OpenTofu goes, it is the way we think about the vision and the development of it is that parity on some functionality with Terraform is going to be primarily community driven. That means that if there is a feature that HashiCorp adds to Terraform that the community thinks OpenTofu should have similar functionality, then what we do is we implement what's called the clean room design process, by which a developer will, without looking at any of the proprietary copyrighted code that HashiCorp has made part of the proprietary versions of Terraform, that developer, without looking at the code, will implement on their own equivalent functionality, or sometimes a different design and with different functionality, if we believe that we can build upon the ideas that HashiCorp has had. And so that means that over time, important functionality that you see in Terraform might make it into, might also be added to OpenTofu. But OpenTofu is a separate project. And what that means is, not content of just adding some functionality that Terraform has, we are going to, and already have been working towards, having an awesome new feature for every release. And this is part of the release model that we have for OpenTofu. That means that every time we ship a major version, that major version will have at least one amazing feature that ships with it. So 1.6 was just about getting stable release. That's out. That's since January. It's stable. You can use it. And 1.7, and there's an alpha out already, is the first release that has one of these flagship features that are release defining port. And again, like the roadmap for all of these amazing features is driven by the community. So if you're using Terraform today or OpenTofu today, and there's something that you really want to see in it, please suggest it. Yeah, and so an example of that's coming in 1.7. Again, there's an alpha that's out, so you can try this already. Is end-to-end state encryption. What that means is on the client side, you can now encrypt your states. And that means that when you store, like, in transmission or wherever you store it, you can encrypt it with your own key. So you don't have to trust whatever commercial vendor you have. You don't have to trust anything in your tool chain. You can encrypt it client side and then use whatever keys you want to. This is really important for all sorts of financial industry or organizations, important for the defense industry and intelligence communities. This is important for really anything that has subject to high security, which is basically everything these days. So client-side state encryption coming out in 1.7. It's the feature defining the release defining feature, and we're excited to bring that to you very shortly. Now, all this wouldn't be useful if it wasn't also super easy to migrate to OpenTofu. Having done it a few times, it's effortless. OpenTofu 1.6 is drop-in compatible with Terraform 1.6. What that means is you can just switch out the binaries, or you can just create an alias, and it's just going to work out of the box. It's just super it's that easy. So OpenTofu 1.6 is compatible with all of your plugins and like all the plugins and providers. Providers don't need to be forked. You can use the AWS provider. You can use the Google or Azure or Datadog or any of these providers. If they work for Terraform, they work for OpenTofu as well. It's the same interface, and those providers don't need to be forked. It's also compatible with all of the code you've written for any of your modules. So if you find some interesting modules online, or if you have a private registry, you can use those unchanged as well. Though OpenTofu also has its own registry, which we have great plans to make it amazing. And there's a talk on that, that if you Google for Linux Foundation OpenTofu registry, it'll be your first hit. All right, so a little bit about migrating in a little bit more depth. So let's say you're a legacy Terraform user. You use Terraform version, I don't know, all the way up to 1.5. This is for you. Quick chart here. You can take a screenshot if you want. But it's very easy. Either you have an existing project, and if it uses any version up to 1.5.7, the recommendation is you go from 1.5.7 to OpenTofu 1.6. And that's an easy path, and it'll be super straightforward. If you're not using the latest version of Terraform yet, latest version of open source Terraform, then it's best to go from 1.3 to 1.4, then to 1.5, and then the latest version, latest major version. And so that's the recommendation. However, if you are creating a new project from scratch, you should definitely start with OpenTofu 1.6. You'll have the best experience there. So it's sometimes folks build automation on top of Terraform, and if that's the case, then you can just switch out the Terraform binary with the Tofu binary, and no one in the community has reported any issues doing that. So you can just make an alias and it'll work. Although code that works for you'll have to follow that process on updating to latest versions. The 1.6 came out in January, so it's been 3 months now. It's very stable, and there's no reason not to use it. Now, if you have not been using Terraform before, I've touched upon this already a little bit before, but there's lots of reasons why you want to do infrastructure as code, lots of reasons why OpenTofu specifically is good, but like the key elements here is that it's like OpenTofu is going to be an infrastructure as code in general. It's going to be more maintainable, more readable. It's a better abstraction, and there's just like so many folks that you can ask for help, and there's just a great community. And so there's if you're using CloudFormation, or if you're using something else, then OpenTofu is a great candidate for that. There we go. Sorry, I'm going really quick. Hopefully this is not too intense. All right, so a couple of additional things. Contributing to OpenTofu is super easy. We have a great group of maintainers that are all very enthusiastically engaging with the community and making it easy for folks to, whether they're new in the process of using it or whether they're veterans of Terraform, all are welcome to join the community. And so there's lots of ways you can contribute. One of the most important things is just evangelization. So if you like talking to your colleagues about moving to OpenTofu, talking about how easy it is to make that migration, but beyond just evangelization, of course, patches are always welcome. But just as important is using it. If you ever run into a bug, letting us know so we can fix it for you. I'm sure there's a lot of folks here that have pushed Terraform to its limits. If you're frustrated with some of that, let us know. We would like to make OpenTofu 10 times better than Terraform. And so any of you, if you want to share, like go to GitHub, share some of those ideas of how we can make OpenTofu better. We're very much looking forward to that. Once again, client-side state encryption is something that's coming in 1.7. There's again already that alpha that is out. But that's this end-to-end state encryption is a great example of something that came from the community. If you look at the date here, the issue was opened in August 29 of last year. The issue was created just a few days after we opened the repository. And what it is, it's a member of the community that had been trying to get this particular feature into Terraform. I think the first time it was submitted to Terraform was in 2016, again in 2020, and again in 2021. And each time, because Terraform didn't have this open governance process, it was essentially just a single vendor and not a Linux Foundation project. It was just a single vendor project. That means that they're the only ones deciding whether something could get in or not. And so this was the state encryption feature is something that was incredibly popular, and a lot of people wanted it to make it into Terraform, but it didn't make it in. It was submitted by a community member for OpenTofu to have this feature. We accepted it. We discussed with the community lots of different architectural trade-offs and how we could possibly implement that. We had a great discussion, and the implementation that we ended up deciding on also came from it was also an idea that came from the community. And so this just goes to show that it's very much a community-driven effort, and the core maintainers definitely don't have a monopoly on all the good ideas, and so that's why in my personal opinion, and hopefully in your opinion as well, that's why we believe that projects that go the extra length, that are what I call level 4 open source projects that have all of these elements of openness. That's why I believe that long term, these open source projects beat any other projects out there, because there's greater communities, you source ideas from more places, and you just have just a higher quality project as an outcome. We are very interested in all of your ideas for what to add to the 1.8 release. We've got some ideas. Lots of ideas have been submitted by the community as well. We're still in the process of triaging all of that. But the release model, again, is it's a release model where every major version will come with an amazing release-defining feature. And what that means is that for 1.8, we're going to choose one ambitious feature and include it. And when that ambitious feature that folks really look forward to, when that feature is ready, everything else that's ready in OpenTofu by that time will get shipped in 1.8, and everything else will get added to 1.9. And so this release cycle, it's not based on calendar dates. It's not based on some random group of folks deciding. It's when the release defining feature is ready, then we ship it. Yep. And so we're looking forward to suggestions across the board, and yeah, I look forward to hearing some of the amazing ideas that you guys might have. Cool. All right. So now we are going to switch live. All this is hopefully this has generated some good ideas or good material for questions. But I'm just going to answer real quick some questions that people typically have for the Q&A. Again, Terraform providers don't need to be forked. Really, this is one of the common misconceptions. The interface between Terraform and the providers is the same as between OpenTofu and the providers because of the common core. And so that means that OpenTofu out of the box works with all the providers, will continue to work with all the providers, and that's true for all the modules, etc. Another question that we often get is whether OpenTofu 1.8 will be compatible with Terraform 1.8. The answer is probably to some extent, but not entirely. Again, OpenTofu is its own project and will have its own roadmap. And over time, the projects will diverge. Right now, OpenTofu is a drop-in replacement for Terraform. So OpenTofu 1.6 is a drop-in replacement for Terraform 1.6. But over time, there will be little differences, and those little differences will add up. What we're doing to make that easier is you can look forward in the documentation to have what we call golden migration paths. And so what that is, it's going to be documentation that if you're currently using Terraform 1.7 or future 1.8 or in the medium future 1.9 and subsequent, each one of those versions will have a recommended and detailed migration path to which version of OpenTofu and what to look out for, and possibly some helpers to make that migration easier. So we'll have these golden migration paths to make future migrations as easy and painless as possible. And the third question that we often get is, will there be other forks of HashiCorp products? And to answer that, yes, there already is one. Some cool developers at IBM have forked Vault into another project called OpenBao, so sticking to the theme of food. And if you just Google for OpenBao, you'll see that open source fork. They just last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, they just released their first alpha, and it's backed by some very large organizations as well. And so we're looking forward to for OpenTofu to integrate with OpenBao, and again, this will be another level 4 open source project. Just some closing notes before going live for the Q&A. If you liked any of the artwork that we made for this, just email tofustickers@scalr.com. Email us your physical address, and we will send you some stickers so you can then share them with your friends, put them on your laptop, your fridge, anywhere you want. And even more importantly, please do join the Slack community. If you just go to opentofu.org/Slack, that will redirect you, and you'll be able to join the community there. And we're a good. We like to believe that we're a good group of folks, and all are welcome. It is primarily an English-speaking community, although we have seen lots of local communities in local languages arise, but this particular Slack is for the time being English speaking, or English writing, I guess, because it's written. All right, so let's go live then.